Hello everyone, I hope you're doing great. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for your support. Today I would like to talk about secondary school education affordability in Kenya and boarding schools in particular. I'd like to talk about boarding schools, especially in the context of a suggestion that has been made about eliminating secondary schools as a measure or as a way of making education or secondary school education affordable in Kenya. So secondary school education in Kenya is supposed to be apparently it's free. According to the government, education is free, but the reality is it's not free. It's a lot of money that students are supposed to pay, and it's clear that many people in Kenya now, many parents in Kenya are struggling to pay their students or their children's fees. So a question that arises is why that should be the case if secondary school education is free. In thinking about this issue, my good friend, Professor Manyora, suggested that boarding schools should be eliminated. So eliminating boarding schools would clearly level out everything. Like people or students throughout the country would have an equal chance of getting an education. Because making all schools day schools, like where students go to school in the morning and come back home in the evening, it levels out everything, because everyone or every student would be able to walk to their nearest school. But maybe before I talk about that, let me just if you're not familiar with the Kenyan schools and boarding schools in particular, let me just maybe give you an idea of what or how the schools are in Kenya. Schools in Kenya are at different ranks. So there are tiers within the school system. So the tier 1, or the first tier, is the national schools. So national schools, these are schools that students who perform best, those who have the highest grades in the KCPE, the standard aid exam that determines where students which secondary schools they go to. So those that score the highest would go to national schools. There are not that many national schools. So those, you could maybe think of them as elite schools. And then tier 2, or the second tier, is that of schools that are called extra county schools. So these previously were called provincial schools, and they're also very good, and they also take like the students that perform very well on the national exam, the KCPE. The third tier, or tier 3 schools, is that of county schools. They were previously called district schools. These also they're not too bad. But they're not as good as extra county schools or national schools, but they're not. Many of them are good enough, and they also take students maybe who perform averagely, and then the last tier is tier 4, the sub-county schools. So these are schools that take students that don't perform as well. So they take the poorest performing students. And the first year national schools and extra county schools and most county schools, those mostly are boarding schools. They're mostly boarding schools. There might be exceptions there here and there, but at least at the level of county schools, but most of them are boarding schools. But sub-county schools, because they are local and they're not as good, they are day schools. So these schools, the sub-county schools, the Tier 4 schools, take students who are local or near where they are located. Yeah, so they tend to be day schools, and they also tend to be mixed. So they admit students who are both they admit both genders, so both boys and girls. Whereas the majority of national schools and extra county schools and county schools, they are single gender schools. So they're either girls' schools or boarding schools. And maybe one thing that I would also like to point out is that performance in the national school, in the national exam, the exam that determines where or which school a student joins, performing very well on that exam doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to attend or to join the school that you qualified for. For example, if a student is very poor or he comes from a very poor family and performs very well and qualifies to go to a national school, so they will get an admission later, yes, but then because of their financial status, because of poverty, they would not be able to join or to go to take up those places. They won't be able to. Yeah, so poverty can deny a student a chance to attend a national school, a chance to attend an extra county school or county schools. So they might end up just attending sub-county schools. So as you can expect, the national schools are probably the best equipped. They will probably offer the best education. Extra county schools are equally good. They have good. They also have. They also have good. They're well funded, and they probably offer the best, or also some of the. They offer very good education as well. But at the lowest tier, the sub-county schools, they don't have as much facilities because these are local schools, and they initially, I didn't say this, initially were called Harambee schools. Harambee means pulling together, and these were usually funded, or they were started by communities. And they were funded by the community. So they didn't initially they didn't receive any support from the government, but now the government, I think, provides teachers, but they don't have as many facilities yet, so they're very poor. So when Manyora says that maybe we should eliminate boarding schools. So boarding schools, which, as I said, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So national schools, extra county schools, and county schools. That eliminating those boarding schools would mean that maybe no student goes or gets to go to these national schools or to these good schools. And that most students will be able to go to their local schools, and that maybe people will be forced to take interest in their schools, like wherever they are, they'll probably be forced to contribute to making these schools better, maybe getting involved more directly in these schools and helping improve their facilities, improve the general well-being. But then, if boarding schools are eliminated now, yeah, maybe let me just one point before I make that, before I go there. Eliminating boarding schools, I think it's a good idea. It is something, it can, or it has the potential of creating an equitable situation, of eliminating inequalities that are now present in the school system in Kenya. There is that potential. But to get there, I think there's a lot that needs to be done. A lot that needs to be done. Where Kenya is now, I think there's a lot of inequality, economic inequality. There are a lot of people who have lots of money, people who are moderately well off, and then there's a lot of people that are just just poor. They can't do much. So to assume that maybe people say, mostly, I'm thinking about people in rural areas, assuming that these people are going to help schools in their locale, in their locations, become better, it's probably not going to happen. So what needs to be done first is to help, or maybe the government should be able to do that, build these schools, increase their funding, build facilities, maybe to bring them closer to where the national schools are, to bring them maybe closer to where extra county schools are. If that doesn't happen, then we are still going to have the inequalities, because national schools, like, they are located in some places in Kenya. So people who live around those schools are obviously going to benefit. They're going to have better facilities in those schools. People who live close to where the extra county schools are located, they're going to benefit. They're going to have an advantage over those who live near schools that are very poor, near the sub-county schools. So the first step that needs to be taken, or the first thing that needs to be done, is to equip as many sub-county schools as possible. So if that can be done, then that will help a great deal. Another thing that maybe should be also done is, or should be pursued, is to remove this exam-based education, like where students go to school and they're trained to just pass an exam. So if you remove that and just say, students going to school to learn, and that's it. Maybe something closer to what the new curriculum is maybe trying to do. Again, maybe that's something that I differ with my friend Manyor. Manyor, I think, doesn't see much in this in CBC, but I think it's something that can or should be pursued. If you have day schools, without boarding schools, and a system like maybe a CBC, a curriculum like that's where you're just focused on teaching students skills, giving students, equipping students with some skills, and not having or expecting them to take a national exam. They can be tested or assessed in different ways, but they don't have to sit for national exam. That then will remove the it will remove the allure, it remove the attraction of maybe going after national schools, or the desire to attend a national school. Yeah, so if schools, local schools, sub-county schools can be equipped, if they can be funded beyond maybe beyond the funding that they currently receive, if they can be improved, then of course, if we can have a system that doesn't put a lot of emphasis on national exams, I think that can or day school can work. But if we just say now that we are eliminating boarding schools, because we want to increase accessibility of secondary school education to everyone. Under the current setup, I think it won't work. We will still have inequalities because people living around national schools, people living around provincial schools or extra county schools, as they're called now, they're going to benefit. They're going to have a better education than those who live near sub-county schools. So it's a good idea. Eliminating boarding schools is a good idea, but it needs a lot of planning. It needs us to plan ahead of time. And last, I would like to end with a challenge. Since we know that day schools, sub-county schools, as they're called now, are important and can serve an important role in the education system in Kenya. Since we know that that's the reality, a lot of students end up going to those schools. Why can't we as society, like where we know we come from those or near some of those schools, why can't we take it upon ourselves, like even under the current setup where we still have boarding schools, national schools that are very well equipped, why can't we as individuals from these local or who come from areas where these local schools, sub-county schools are located, why can't we take it upon ourselves to help improve these schools? I come from, for example, a school, this elementary school, a primary school called Suna, and there are a couple of secondary schools nearby. They're not as good. But I'm thinking that if people who have the ability, I'm not saying maybe I have the ability, but who are maybe kind of well off. You don't have to be rich to help these schools. I think, you just need to be willing, and you can find ways. You can do fundraising. You can do fundraisers. You can maybe find ways of attracting funding to these schools. Why can't we, as individuals from this or living near these sub-county schools, why can't we take interest in these schools and help them improve? You could commit maybe some of your money to do one or two things in those schools. Some of them are very, very poor. I've looked at some of them and how they operate and the kind of facilities they have. Some, like the Suna primary school that I just mentioned, this is not a boarding school, it's just as a primary school. like the desks in the classrooms, even just the nature of the classrooms themselves, the state in which they are deplorable. And you look at the secondary schools also, there isn't much going on for them as well. The laboratories, they don't have well-equipped laboratories. They don't have enough classrooms, and also the state of the classrooms themselves. Yeah, so there's, I think, something that just regular people, normal people like me can do. Yeah, so I sometimes think of something that yeah, something similar to what I see. Not similar. It's not similar, but people talk about adopt a road in the U.S. I think they talk about that, like where people take a section of a road and they take care of it. They collect maybe trash on those. Just keep the road clean. So what if people in Kenya adopt, say, a primary school or adopt a secondary school and take it upon themselves to help improve those schools? Thank you for listening. I would like to know what you think about what I discussed today, what you think about boarding schools, whether eliminating boarding schools is a good idea, and also the challenge that I just gave at the end of the, or towards the end, of adopting, say, a primary school or a secondary school within your area, within your rural, within the rural area that you come from. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that? Is that something you think is doable? Can we start getting involved in these schools and making them better without necessarily waiting for boarding schools to be eliminated? Thank you, and I'll see you next time.